Welcome, Cyrus students. Today we're going to talk about some of the advanced functionality of Matrix MLS. We're going to go through really 4 sections of Matrix today. We're going to start by talking about your information and some of the things that a lot of agents have never gone in and customized that we highly recommend you do. We're going to move into search. We're going to talk a little bit about map searching and a public record search. Then we're going to go into a statistics section that, again, I think is really underutilized. And we're going to finish up with some financial calculators. And I think you'll be pleasantly surprised at what is available in the Matrix system that you may not have known about up until today. So with that, let's go ahead and dive right in. Now, a few months ago rather, we had some changes to the navigation, and I want to start out by showing how you get to My Information, because it is different. It used to be under the My Matrix heading, but now you're going to want to go over to where it says Working As and has your name. You're going to click on your name, and you're going to go to Settings. Now, underneath the settings section, there's a variety of areas that you can look at, but the one we're going to talk about today is My Information. So I'm simply going to click there. And the first page is just your basic profile information. You want to make sure that this information is accurate, that your website is correct. If you've got one, if you don't, make sure you enter that. Your cell phone, your contact information, and of course your office should all be here already. Anything that's missing, you feel free to fill in, or if it is incorrect, of course, then you can reach out to the MLS staff to have that corrected, or in the meantime, you can use the override checkbox to make changes to that information. If you do make any changes, be sure that you click Save at the bottom of that page. The second tab is really the most important tab, though. This is the one I want you to focus on. This is called your header and footer. One of the questions that we get a lot is, how can I have my name, my branding, show up on my listing detail pages when I print them, on the emails when I send them? How do I get all that information to show? And the real way to do that is by adding a header and footer. Now, there are a few different templates in here that you can choose from. Personally, none of these really jump out at me, and so I don't know that I would jump on any of these necessarily, but if one of these is something you're interested in, you can simply select that one to begin using it. If none of these call out to you, then you actually have the ability to upload a custom image. Now, that custom image is something that you would have to have created already. Now, you can, of course, pay any marketing company to do that. You could probably go on websites like Fiverr.com and request someone to make one. But I made a quick one today on lunch just for the fun of it. And so I'm going to just select Basic Template, because that's the one we always recommend you use if you want to upload a custom image. And then you're going to click Preview at the bottom left. And I can reset this to default, and you'll see it's got kind of a blacked out section here. There can be text underneath my name, or it has my name and my photo, but I don't want to use all this generic stuff. I want to actually create my own. So I'm going to say no photo, and I'm going to blank out all of these different text fields because I don't need any of those. Instead, I'm going to upload a custom banner image. And if you have a marketing team at your brokerage, I would highly recommend you ask them to create custom banners for you and any other agents in your office. The size for that image is 1600 by 120 pixels, so you will want to make sure that that is set up that way. You also want to make sure that all of the important information is in the left 800 pixels, because that's what's going to display every time. Now I'm simply going to browse and locate my image, and I created one. It's in my Syra folder. So here's mine. It's called Brian Matrix Banner, and if I upload that, you'll now see that it has my text, my photo, my brokerage logo, which is just a generic brokerage logo, Equal Housing and the realtor icons, and I did this really quickly using basic software, so my text doesn't look phenomenal, but if your marketing team does this, they're going to make this look its best, and it's going to be absolutely phenomenal. Make sure you select transparency so you don't get any black. And that's really my custom banner, and that's what I'm going to save because I want that to print every single time I print a listing. After the custom banner, you also have what's called your print footer. And I'd really recommend that you check that and make sure that it is what you want it to say as well, because that will print at the bottom of a variety of different places, including all of those listing detail pages. Now you can turn this off entirely, not have a print footer, but I would highly recommend you include one, and then you choose the 3 or 4 different items you want to have show up on your profile. So maybe I add the office phone too. And now those are always going to show up when I print those listing detail pages. You can also select the text and or line color that show up there as well, if you'd want to customize that coloration. But I like black. You'll notice I made my logo graphics black and white. I just really like the grayscale look. So that's what I'm going to go with. And again, if you make changes, make sure you click Save. And that's now what will print every single time for me. There's also what's called the CMA cover sheet. And if you've produced a CMA in Matrix, you've probably seen the cover sheet before, but you may not have noticed that you can actually customize that. By default, this is the information it's going to show, but you have the ability to change and to modify that by overriding the fields. While this field down here says Agent Web Pages, I don't have to use it for that. I could put any text there I wanted. I could make that a link to my HomeSnap app login or download, or I could make that some disclaimer text if I wanted. Whatever you want to do, you have the ability to customize this, but I like the way that mine looks, so I'm going to leave that. I've also added my photo to the left, you'll notice. Make sure you have done that, because that will print on there as well. The next tab over is your email signature. And if you've ever taken any of my classes, you've heard me talk about email signature. It's one of the most important things for a realtor to set up. So please do make sure that you've got your email signature here. Now, I'm actually going to delete what I have here and just show you how I like to add them. Really quick and easy. Simply go to an email that you have, copy your signature. So select that email signature, right-click and hit copy, and come back over to Matrix, right-click and hit paste. If you don't see paste when you right-click, then you can do a Control-V on a PC, that's paste, or on a Mac it is Command-V. Same functionality, and you'll see it pasted everything in. It's got my images, it's got everything that I would need ready to go, and then I would simply save this. You always want to make sure that your email signature is the same in all platforms. That way when your clients receive an email from you, they know it's really from you. It's not fake, it's not some spam email that's trying to steal their information or convince them to wire funds to a fake person. So just make sure that that is set up and that it is the same as what you have in your regular email. The next one over is called Agent Web Page, and this is really a phenomenal feature that Matrix or that Cyra agents have access to. If your brokerage doesn't provide you with your own website, your own agent-focused website, then it's okay because Matrix does, automatically for free. You don't have to pay for this, it's just part of your Cyra membership. Now you do have to come over here and enable it. By default it is disabled. And then you're going to pick a URL. And by default, your URL is just going to be your name. yourname.cyra.mlsmatrix.com. That is now my new website. And anyone that goes to that website is going to see my content, whatever content I add here in this body, whatever I've added down below as the additional sections, which are kind of hard to see right now, available in selected sections. I've got a video, my contact info, and a photo page. Added to that as well, and so you can very quickly see that information on my website. Now it's a very basic website. You don't have a lot of interior pages. You're not adding additional content. It's very, very basic, but it does give clients the ability to search the entire MLS directly from your website, and it's free. With that, you can set up a map area. Now this is really personal preference if you'd ever want to do this or not. But with this, you have 2 different options for setting that map area. You can restrict searches to a specified map area, which basically means I don't want clients on my personal website to be able to search outside of that specified map area. For an example, CIRA reaches really, really far east and west, and personally, I'm just not driving all the way out to Madison, Indiana, unless I've got a really great client that's begging me to go there. So I might set mine to restrict to just the, Clarksville, New Albany, areas of southern Indiana, and cutting off that Madison area by drawing on the map. Or maybe vice versa. Maybe I'm a Madison agent and I don't want to drive all the way to Clarksville, New Albany, that area. Well, then I could restrict my map to just that Madison, Indiana area. And with that, no one will be able to search on your website outside of that mapped area. Not necessarily ideal because, well, we like to work with clients all over the place, especially in a market like today where we just don't have a lot of listings. So the second option might be better for you. The second one is to specify an initial map view, but allow clients to move and search anywhere they want inside the CIRA market. So you can still draw on the map that you're in the Madison area or the New Albany, Clarksville area, but then if they wanted to search the other areas, they still have that option so that people kind of know your area and are looking there primarily, but then have the ability to search the entire market. That's the method I would go with, so I'm going to select that view. And then underneath that, you'll see it says Modify Map Area. That's where you're actually going to choose the area that you want it to have included. And when you click there, it's going to bring up a little map, and you'll see that's a pretty broad range already. I'd kind of like to eliminate some of that. So I can either use a rectangle, and you'll see when I clicked rectangle, it disappeared. And I can draw a new rectangle, and that's the area that I would be using. Or I could use a polygon if I wanted to make this even more granular, have even more control. Right now it's going across the river into Louisville, and maybe I'm not licensed across the river and I don't really want my clients to look there. So I could do a polygon and just click every time you need it to turn. And obviously you would want to do a little bit more accurate job than I'm doing here, but just to get myself a shape, maybe that's my map area. And now that's the initial view, but people can still search anything they want. So because that's the setting that I saved. So really quick, easy to set up a map area, and then you just simply want to save it. It doesn't seem to want to save today for some reason. So I'm just going to cancel that, but it should save. If you have issues getting that to save as well, just contact the Matrix support team and they should be able to help you get that to work. But today, just not going to be my day for that one. Again, if you make any changes, please make sure that you click Save at the bottom of this screen. Now the last section is your portal profile. And the portal is where you're going to set up all of that agent website information. So if you remember under agent web page, I had added a couple of additional sections like video, contact info, and photo. I get to those underneath the portal profile. So here's my portal greeting, video, contact info, photo. All four of those sections are right here for me to update. And I could click on photo and change that photo if I wanted. I could click on my portal greeting and change what it says. My video I uploaded, I used a YouTube URL of my broker talking about our core values and our vision. And I just added that video. Very quick and easy to add those. You simply use that URL for the YouTube or the Vimeo or whatever video hosting platform you're using. And then again, my contact info. And I've selected only the things I really wanted included. I could add additional to this if I wanted, like maybe my fax, whatever I might need here. And I'm actually going to blank that one and put my disclaimer at the bottom. It's really quick and easy to change that. But the only info that you can add in these is the information that you added all the way at the very beginning under the Information tab. So if you don't see the field that you want when coming down here to the Contact Info section, you're going to want to go back to that Information tab, add it there, then you could come over here and add it as well. Again, last, if you make changes, be sure to save that. And that's really it for your profile. It's really, really important to at least get that header and footer though, so that people see you when you print those listing detail pages for your clients. And then also that email signature, so that when you send emails, they look their best. Now, if you didn't know, the Cyra logo at the top left-hand corner is actually your home button. So if you're anywhere in the system and you want to get back home, simply click that Cyra logo. You'll be taken right back home. The next section that I really want to look at is going to be the search. And we're going to do a map search, but before I do anything on the map, I really want to load the public record search. And this is fairly new to Matrix. This came out in 2019, I believe it was, but it's something that you may or may not have ever seen. By default, it might not show up underneath your search tab. When you hover over search, you might not see the words public record. And if you don't, then you need to go click on the More button, because there are searches that don't by default show up. Until you've run them once, they may not show up here. So you'd want to click More, and this will get you everything. And then from here, I can go underneath public record and click on tax search. Now, the tax search is exactly what it sounds like. Matrix has incorporated tax info directly into the MLS. So instead of going to a tax website to run a search, you can do that search right here in Matrix. And what that means is that you have the ability to search every home. Not every listing, not every home that's ever been listed, but every home should be available inside your Matrix system. Now, I shouldn't say every home, because there's always an exception to that rule, and some things just may not show up. New construction especially, but even some existing construction just doesn't actually show up in here, and that would be something that you could report to Matrix to see if they could enhance that, but sometimes the data is just not there for it. So, now when running a tax search, you've got a wide range of options. You could search by the owner name. If you know that I want to see the home that is owned by Ryan Means, I could go over here to owner name and I could type in Means for last name, Ryan for first, and run a search. And it would find any houses that have tax records that show Ryan Means as the owner. Or I could do it by location. I could do it based off of the actual street number, street name. I could do it based off of a map search, which is what we're going to do. A subdivision, a school district, a county, city, zip code, whatever location data you wanted to use. You can also add additional criteria. So you could put in the last sales dates based on tax data, not MLS data. So even if the house sold but was sold outside of the MLS, it didn't have a realtor involved, you can still search by that sold date, which is really quite useful. You can search by estimated values or assessed values. You can put in, of course, bedroom, bathroom, square footage, all that good stuff. And then you can look by listing activity. And by listing activity would be the last time it was listed in the MLS or any of this other criteria in the MLS, any of these other statuses. You can even add additional fields just like we do on our regular MLS searches. But before I go into any of that, let's look at the map search. So I'm going to click where it says map search because I want to run a map search. When running a map search, now with a public record search, you're always going to get this message, too many results to map. They can't map more than 5,000, and well, there's more than 5,000 houses in that map that you're seeing. So we need to put in some criteria. And I'm going to use my drawing to do that. Now I'm working off a computer, and I highly recommend you do that with a mouse. It's going to make your life a lot easier. But if you are using a touchscreen device, they have enabled this to be functional for that as well, and I'll show you how to use that tool as well. The first drawing option is what's called Draw Radius, and it's exactly what it sounds like. Draw a radius around a property. And that's mostly used for CMAs and other similar purposes. But I could click on Draw Radius. I could locate whatever I want to draw a radius around. Maybe it's this house here. Click and drag my mouse to whatever radius I want. When I get to 1 mile, I let go. And I now have a perfect 1 mile radius around that property with every single house, not every listing, not every property that was ever listed, but every home showing up in my search. And it looks like there's about 418 homes in that 1 mile radius. That's a quick, easy radius. Now, if you need to get rid of that radius, you're just going to click the red dot in the middle and then click where it says delete shape. And you've now gotten rid of that shape. You can also draw multiple shapes. So if I click and draw a radius and I click and draw another radius, it's going to find anything inside of either radius. You can very, very quickly draw multiple shapes if you needed. And if I go to that red dot on either of those, when they do intersect like this, you have the option of only including the intersection. So only looking at what is in both circles, not what's in either or just one. You're going to really be able to narrow your results by using that intersection. You could also exclude shapes if you didn't want this section to be included in the other circle. The next shape over is called a rectangle, and to be quite honest, I've just never found it useful. I can't think of any situation where I would draw a perfect rectangle. I saw someone do it the other day and I asked them why they were, and their answer was, it's easy. And that is true, it is easy to draw a rectangle. Same thing with the circle, but this time you're going to click on one corner and drag it to the opposite. So I would click here and drag down here, let go. I've now drawn that rectangle. But that rectangle crosses all kinds of different areas, different roads. It's just not really an ideal shape typically. But if you've got a reason to draw one, feel free to do so. Again, they are really easy to draw, but I like to be more specific than that shape. So I'm going to delete that, and I'm going to try to draw, and this is going to be a little bit complicated, but I'm going to try to draw over here from Perry Crossing down to Bennettsville, down to this intersection down here, and then back over to 65 and up. That's the shape that I want to draw. And the easiest way to do that's always going to be a polygon. With a polygon, you can draw anything you can think of. So I'll click there, and I like to start at a corner. So I'm going to start up here at Perry Crossing, and I'll click, and I'm just going to click to follow the road. Now this road turns a fair amount, so I might want to zoom in, and using the wheel on your mouse, you can quickly do that. You can also click and hold and drag around without placing a point. So I'm going to keep drawing here, get over here to Bennettsville, and now I need to change. So I'm going to turn, just keep drawing until I get down to this intersection of St. Joe Road. Follow that over to I-65. Now with I-65, it's pretty much a straight shot north. And I get up here, and then I just need to connect to the end. And you'll notice that until you reach the end, your cursor is a plus sign. It's a cross. That's letting you know where the point is going to be placed. But if you get to the end, it changes to a hand with their finger pointing out. That finger is where you're connecting to the original dot. So if you see that hand, you're good. Even if it doesn't look perfectly placed, if you see the hand, it's perfectly placed. Click, and you've now committed that polygon. And I'm just looking inside that polygon at this point. And apparently there's a lot of properties inside that polygon. Now, I'm going to draw one more shape because I want to show you one other feature. If you've drawn multiple shapes, if you've gotten to where you really need to get rid of all of them, and you don't want to go through and click the red dot, click delete shape on all of your shapes, you do have this eraser symbol. It's the third from the right. That's just to clear your shapes. Clicking that deletes all of your shapes. Now let's draw that same shape, but let's do it using the touch-enabled functionality. So the fourth icon, the middle icon here, is what's called the freehand polygon. It's still a polygon, so you can literally draw any shape, but it's freehand. So instead of having to click, 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 you just tap and draw. Now I'm actually still going to use my mouse, but you could do this very easily on your phone or tablet using your finger. So I click on the pen, which is the freehand, and I still click where I want to start, But now I just click and hold and I draw over those lines. And to be honest, this is a little bit harder with a mouse, especially if the screen starts to move on you, but that's okay. I'll show you how to fix a mistake too. And I'll let go. And that's a pretty hideous shape. I've kind of made a mistake on this. You'll see I've got a little crossing over itself up here at the top. At the bottom, it jumped down really far. Well, the nice thing with shapes in Matrix is you can just click and hold and move any point. So for instance, this corner here, I don't want it all the way up here. If I just click and hold, I can drag it down. Apparently I have two corners there, so that's a little harder. But there we go. Drag it down to I-65. Drag that corner over. And bring all my corners down. Now I've fixed that side of the shape. If I come down to the bottom here, same thing. I went way down here. This one would be a little bit harder to fix because it puts a point every time your finger turns or every time my mouse turned. So it would take a little bit of effort to get that one perfect. I'm not going to spend too much time on that, but just know that you can adjust those as needed. Now I have this map area here. 838 properties are inside of that shape. And maybe I want to eliminate part of that too. So I'm going to do a polygon and we're going to eliminate that bottom corner. Exclude this shape. When you exclude, you'll see your circle turned red, or whatever shape you're excluding turned red. That got me down to 624. Maybe I'll exclude the top right-hand corner as well, just because I'm trying to get to around 500 properties personally. Exclude, and that's probably going to get me pretty close. 605. Close enough. Now, once you have finished drawing on that map, you can go back to the Criteria tab to put in any other criteria you might want to use. So for an example, maybe I want to do an assessed value of at least 100,000. Now, just like the rest of Matrix, your price fields default to the thousands. You don't have to type 100,000. Simply typing 100 puts 100,000. And then I would do the plus symbol to say I want more than 100,000, because I don't really want to mark it to any vacant land is kind of my thought here. So I'm doing 100,000 plus. I could also include bedrooms, bathrooms, square footage, acres, whatever I really wanted to include in my criteria. But I'm actually good with just having the map area and 100,000 plus. I've got 476 matches. That's reasonable. I'm trying to do somewhere around 500. And you'll see why here in just a few minutes. So I've got 476. I go over to my Results tab, and it looks just like the rest of Matrix, except in place of an MLS ID field, we have a tax ID field. It's the exact same functionality. If I were to click on a tax ID, it's going to load the details page of that property. But it's not going to load a listing detail page, it's going to load a tax details page. And we'll look at that in just a moment. You still have the status bar on the left here where I've got the blue push pin. That blue push pin lets me know that that property is sold. If there were other colors over there, it doesn't look like I've got any other ones. But if there were, I could see things like active, pending, canceled, withdrawn, whatever other statuses there might be. You've got photos, but these are tax records. Why would I have photos? Well, you'll notice those only show up next to the ones that have a status symbol. Those are the ones that have been listed in the past. And you're able to get to those listing photos from when it was listed. You have other columns as well, and feel free to check all of those out. Most of them are the same as what you would see in a normal search, but some of them are tax record specific. But let's look at one of these. So I'm going to click on this tax ID number, and here's the tax information page or the details page. Very similar, but of course there's no listing info. There's no photo because it's tax records. But you get the last 3 years worth of assessments right here on the tax record itself. You have all the property characteristics, building features. You even have info about the owners and where else they may live. If there are other properties, you can sometimes get that in here as well. But quick, easy access. Now, if this property had been recently listed, results, tax grid, Let's pick one that's been recently listed. I have the last listing tab. Last listing tab is the listing detail page. That's the only difference, is that I have that on a public record. And so that page is extremely familiar to you. You've all seen that one, no difference there. Photos, same tab as you would get on the listing, but you're seeing it in the public record search. Now, history is where it gets really interesting. Depending on the property, you're going to get a variety of history. For instance, this one has listing history because it was listed in the MLS. It also has public record sales history. Some of them will have mortgage history as well. It just depends on what is available to the system. But I can quickly see that in March of 2014, it was deeded to Keith Carter from Michael and Deborah Lee. So I'm quickly able to identify that information. Of course, I can go back and I can see when it was actually sold in the MLS as well and see what that price was and any other information there as well. You also get a parcel map, and this map is actually 3 maps in one. I thought they had a fourth. Oh, flood map is the next tab over. Parcel map, you're going to get the actual parcel in a satellite view, then in a map view where you're able to see just the outlines of everything. And then you have a zoomed out satellite view where you can see kind of the neighboring properties and change your zoom level and various other things. And then the last tab here is the flood map, where you can see all the flood determination information right on that map. Some properties will also have a foreclosure tab. Pretty obvious what would be required there. They'd have had to have some kind of foreclosure information. But you would be able to see the entire foreclosure history. If it's been foreclosed on multiple times, gone through short sales, any of that information should show up on that foreclosure tab if available. So really, really useful to be able to get tax information. But the real reason that I came here, and I'm going to go back to my tax grid display, is because I want to show you something that's really cool that's only available in Matrix, for MLSs at least, that I know of, and that is the ability to now market to these contacts, to these people. 476 properties. And I'm going to select all by clicking the all button. So now I've selected 476 properties, and I have an export button. I also have a print button though, and this is the one I'm going to use. So if I go to print, I have the ability to print mailing labels with either the occupant's name and the property address, the occupant's name with a tax address, the property owner with a property address, the property owner with a tax address, or one that shows the occupant's name and owner's name and the tax address. So I'm going to choose owner and property address, and then I can print this to a PDF. And that's going to download a PDF of those mailing labels, with owner names and property addresses already on them for 476 houses around the house that I chose. So I did a polygon, but if I'd done a radius around a sale that I had just had, then I could then market a postcard to those 476 homes, saying, I just sold your neighbor's house for 10% over asking price in 30 days. And you're probably going to be able to get a couple of extra listings that way. So this is a fantastic way to market yourself to the local community around a sale or around a just listed. Or maybe you wanted to send out an open house postcard. You could do that as well. So being able to search public records, really, really useful, but being able to export or print those mailing labels is even more useful. Now if I wanted, I could go to the export tab, and from this I could export the tax grid, or I could export owner information. If I export owner information, I'm going to get an Excel file with the names and addresses, including both property and tax address, for these 476 records. Now this export does limit you to 5,000 contacts per month. Now if you're mailing to 5,000 homes per month, then I would love to talk to you and find out what you're doing, but it's just not likely. Very, very few agents will use 5,000 in a month. So just know that that is available to you. And again, it downloads a CSV file, an Excel file that you could then use multiple times. So maybe you actually run the search using a subdivision. And then you could have a tax record of that subdivision, and if you sell something else in that neighborhood in the same month, the same couple of months, then you could just use the same records. You don't necessarily have to download that again to print those mailing labels. You have a CSV, it's ready to go. You could print labels, or you could print directly on the postcard if you use a service that does print labels directly on the postcards. And that's it for the search and for the map searching, the public record and map searching. The next thing I really want to look at is the stats. And most agents probably have never gone to this section. And those of you that have gone to the stats, you looked over here at the system presets and you said, well, you know, historic sales by year, that's kind of cool. Historic sales price trend, that might be useful. There's a couple of useful ones here, but maybe they're not the ones you're looking for. Maybe what you really want to have is a day on market trend. You want to see a historic days on market or some other statistic. Well, just because you don't see it doesn't mean you can't have it. These are just the system presets that were built by Matrix for everyone to use, but you can actually create your own custom versions. So let's look at one. I'm just going to start with historic sales by year because it's quicker if I start with something. But I could also just go to the Customize tab initially. But I'm going to do historic sales by year, and I'm going to go to Customize. And then it says, what's the time frame that you want? Well, by default, it's the previous year, 2020. I don't really want 2020. Maybe I want the past 5 years for a historic sales by year. But then, what's the statistic you actually want? Do you want the number of sales? Well, I don't. I want days on market. So I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to look for CDOM. And I'm going to go with the average CDOM. I'm thinking about making an entire statistics class about average versus median because I've spent more hours than I care to admit talking to realtors about the difference. And it just seems like a lot of people don't quite understand the difference. But in our markets, most people talk average, so we're going to stick with average for today's class. Chart type, smooth line is typically recommended, but you could pick a different option if you prefer. It really depends on the statistics on which graph is going to make the most sense. But I want the line, so I'm going to stick with the smooth line. You could add a secondary statistic, so I could look at days on market compared to sales price or compared to the number of homes selling at that point in time. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's look at the number of sales. So now I'm going to be comparing days on market to the number of sales, and I'm going to leave that one as a column. I like the idea of having that as a column chart. How do I want it grouped? By month is fine with me, but you could do it by year or any other item that makes sense. I'm going to keep it by month though. Now you can mess with your style options. I'm not going to go into those, but that's really for changing things like color and various other options. I don't think that's necessary for today, so we're going to skip it. And then by default, it's looking at the entire market. But do you want the entire market? Maybe you're doing this for a client and you really want their subdivision or their county at the very least. Well, you could add any of that criteria as well. I just want this for all residential farms, residential/farm properties. I don't want to include commercial, rental, vacant land because those can drastically skew your data. So I'm going to do just residential farm, and I'm not going to pick an area. I'm going to leave it for the entire market because I really just want CIRA data. And once you've got all of your criteria entered, you're going to click the Generate button. And here's my chart. Here's my new graph that I just created. So the green line represents the cumulative days on market, and that's the left side over here. So that started, looks like roughly 108 days on market or so, and at the end of this chart, we ended roughly 64, maybe 60 days on market. 65 to 70 days on market. But so you're quickly able to see that, about 110 to about 64, 70, somewhere in that range. And then the blue is the number of sales. And so you can kind of see where the number of sales went up recently and the days on market went down more recently. And again, this is looking at 5 years. I could pick just the last 12 months and really get an idea of what that's looking like right now. So the number of sales are kind of decreasing, it looks like, but the days on market is also decreasing. So they're selling faster, but there's less sales, which doesn't surprise me because there's less listings right now. So you can really start to get a really interesting picture of what's available to you with these charts. And I could turn off the second chart, just get the green line to really just show that cumulative days on market. And again, maybe I go 10 years and really get a trend to show we started off really high and we're ending really low on our days on market. But you're just quickly able to run a variety of statistics, and more statistics than the average realtor realized was available. Now, once you've set one of these up, I would recommend that you save it for future access. So I could save this one, and I could name this 10-year CDOM trend, single family residential. Save search criteria because I want it to keep that single family residential portion, and then save a copy. And now you'll see when I go to the stats on the bottom left, I have a 10-year CDOM trend for SFR. And if I click that, it's already got residential family, and on the Customize tab, it has my past 10 years CDOM average grouped by month. So you can create your own charts, your own statistical analysis that you use on a periodic basis, and you don't have to have it save the residential farm portion, because if you're picking a county or a subdivision, then you're really going to want to pick that every time. So I wouldn't necessarily check that box, but it can be a really, really useful functionality to have access to these additional charts. The other thing about the charts is you don't just get this graph, which, by the way, can be printed by clicking the print icon at the bottom left or emailed using the email icon. But you can also take this and you can look at the actual data, and that can be really, really useful as well. And that's going to show you the actual cumulative days on market for January of 2011, January 2012. Every year's data is going to show up here, so that you can see every month what the actual cumulative days on market was for that particular month, instead of just seeing it in that graph form. And that data can also be printed as well. Click Show Tabular, and there it all prints together. Quick, easy to print. You could hide the chart, hide the tab, whatever you wanted to include or exclude from that print. So check out those stats. There's more there than what you think is there, and there's some really, really useful stats in that section. Now, the last section that I really want to talk about is the finance calculators. We're not going to talk about summary, closing costs, estimated net proceeds. I just want to talk about these calculators because I think real estate calculators are something that most people don't look at very often. The realtors that I've shown this to said they didn't know it existed, so I'm thinking that this is not a very common place that realtors go. And the reason that I think that is most agents think of a real estate calculator as a mortgage estimate, something that's going to tell me what my monthly mortgage payment is going to be, and that's all it does. And, well, in this system, that's not all it does. Matrix has some of the best calculators I've ever used for any purpose. And there's some really, really fantastic ones that you can use for a variety of clients just to kind of position yourself as the real estate expert. You don't necessarily have to be trying to get them to buy or sell a house, just to show that you know more about real estate than the average person. So when a potential client says, I'm thinking about refinancing, well, I'm going to come in here every time that someone says that to me, and I'm going to pull up this refinance calculator, and I'm going to show them what that might mean for them. So, should I refinance? Well, what's your original loan amount? Well, we started off at the $350,000 mark. It was a 30-year loan. We got that loan in January of 2021, and our interest rate was 3.1, whatever the case may be, whatever your client says. Then, well, do you need to cash out anything on your refinance? Well, no, I'm really just looking for a cheaper rate, or maybe I do need to cash out, let's say we're trying to get 10 grand out. So I'm going to do a $10,000 cash out. What's the new interest rate going to be? Well, interest rates are historically low, so maybe I'm getting a 2.875 on the new one. And I want to make my rate even a little lower, so maybe I'm going to pay 2 points. And my fees and closing costs, of course, you've all been in real estate probably longer than I have and have a pretty good idea of the fees and costs there. There's actually a calculator to help with that if you need it, but I'm just going to leave that at a $1,500 fee and closing cost, assuming it's fairly standard. How long is the new loan? Well, it's going to be a 30-year loan as well. And then what other information do they need? Well, your income tax rate. And of course, you want to estimate this based on whatever the client tells you. But I'm going to leave mine at about 28%. I'm fine with that. Your savings rate or your investment rate of return, 2.3 is fine. How long do you plan on keeping the property? And this is one that not enough people talk about. And you don't necessarily need this number, it's not critical, but it is kind of useful for the graph. So I plan on staying in my house about 10 years. Maybe longer, but for estimate purposes, I'll say 10 years. And then, do you want to see a graph? Do you want to see current repayment schedules and the refinance payment schedules? And those are really important as well because you can start to identify trends in that as well. But I'm not going to do any of those because I just want to show you the basic information, what it provides you, and how powerful this can be. So I'm simply going to click Compute. And it's going to process. And it says that refinancing will immediately cost me $8,664.48 to cover the loan origination fees. It will take 206 months before the savings in interest offsets the origination fees. If you plan to stay in this property for 10 years, you will save, and you'll notice it's in parentheses. That lets me know it's actually negative, which means it will cost me an extra $1,999.77 over a 10-year period. Now, if I extended that out to 15 years and I recompute, it goes down to only losing $500. But again, remember, I took out 10 grand at the beginning. So over 15 years, losing 500 bucks, but getting 10 grand in cash might be worth it to that client. It might not. So you really want to be able to provide that information and explain that though. So let's take this a step further. Let's say that my current interest rate's actually a 4%. Maybe I just don't have that good a rate. Well, now you're going to start to see the savings, and you're going to start to see a lot of savings. If I kept it over 15 years, I'd be saving $23,763. That's a huge amount of savings on that single loan there. So really, really quick and easy to enter this data and get a really, really powerful financial calculator, and that's just the Should I Refinance calculator. There's how much car can I afford? Investment calculators. What's the yield on my portfolio? How can I save $1 million? Retirement calculators. There's so many calculators that you just don't know you have. Get in there and check them out. Play with them. See what they're able to do and see if it's something that you could benefit from or that your clients could benefit from. And with that, that's all I have for you in today's session. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you benefited from it. If there's any future topics you'd like to see, please let us know. And I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day.